We left off Ayin Beis, 72a. 72a, Rabbi. Are you waiting for the Gemara? Where's Howard? Okay. We left off the fourth line on Ayin Beis and Aleph. Until now, we've been discussing in terms of, the Gemara had said earlier that when Ezra left Bavel, he left it to be the equivalent of solas nekiah, as pure flour. There wasn't a question of any illegitimacy there, because any illegitimacy he had taken with him to Eretz Yisrael, because he was concerned that the people, since the Talmidei Chachamim had left, there would be no one to supervise and oversee the community, and there was a concern, if he leaves any people who are not legitimate there, illegitimate Jews, there's going to be intermarriage, and the whole community will become illegitimate. So therefore, Bavel is solas nekiah, it's the equivalent of the finest, purest flour. Even regarding Eretz Yisrael, it's purer than Eretz Yisrael. Doesn't make a difference. They maintained it. They maintained it. They maintained it. Look, because we discussed, even in Bavel, there were problems. That's what we discussed, the various cities, to what point, where did they maintain it, what did they not maintain. So that's the discussion now. So the Gemara gave boundaries. They said the communities between these rivers are what? Are the purest. Like we said earlier, Pumbedisa was, of all the cities in Bavel, that region had the purest pedigree. Meaning there were other regions in Iraq, in Bavel, they did not have it. Okay? And there were other cities in Bavel which were equivalent to Pumbedisa. That's what we were discussing. So now, the Gemara Mishnah says in the beginning of Gittin that if a person maybe get Medin Sayon, a person brings a get from overseas, the shliach, the agent that delivers the get, has to say, he has to testify the get was written before him and was signed before him. So there's a machlokas in the Gemara. What does he have to speak about? The writing of the get, what does he have to speak about? Nechtam, it was signed before him. Now, we discussed that a get on the Torah level has to be written lishma. It has to be written with a specific intent for this particular man, for this particular woman, and also it was authorized by the husband that it should be written. So Machlokes shown him if the writing get has to be done through shlichus. The delivering of a get, it says b'sholach. That's one of the sources for shlichus. How do we know shlichus shalom? Shlich shalom kamoso, that when you delegate something through an agent, that the agent is equivalent of the husband. So one of the sources, of course, is v'shilach. It says v'shilcho. It says v'shilcho. So Gemara says v'shil. We have the second parak in kiddushin. So from there we learn shlich shalom kamoso, that one's agent is equivalent of himself. So the delivering of the get, it's no question of shlichus. That's an agent. Only the husband could divorce his wife. What about the writing of the get? Because Torah says v'kosav. It says v'kosav lo sefer krisus. He should write for her a document of termination. That's what Torah writes. V'kosav lo sefer krisus. The ksivas haget is that shlichus. What do you say, Yosef? So Tosas proves that the writing has to be authorized, but it's not shlichus. Why? The Gemara says that if you have a katan, a minor writing a get, ain't shlichus l'katan. A minor cannot be a shliach, right? You have to be an adult to be a shliach. But it says, what about a non-Jew writing a get? A get has to be written l'shma. So Gemara says, if a non-Jew writes a get, it's not valid. Why? Even if it's godel omen al gabav, even if there's somebody overseeing it and instructing him every step of the way, it's not valid. Why? Because adai did nafshikovid. Because when the goy writes a get, he has his own ideas. He doesn't follow the instruction of the one who actually dictates it. But a child, a minor, will follow the instruction. If you have godel omen al gabav, if you have an adult instructing him every step of the way, it's valid. So Tosas says, ein shlichus l'katan, ein shlichus la'akum. We're only saying the reason why the non-Jew is not qualified because adai did nafshikovid is because he has his own ideas. He doesn't follow instruction. But he be a shliach, even if he would follow an instruction. A non-Jew is not qualified to be a shliach. Right? Shlichus, ain't shlichus la'akum, the Gemara says. Anju cannot be a shliach. Ain't shlichus l'koton, a minor cannot be a shliach. So we see clearly, Tosa says that the lishma of the get, it doesn't have to be written by the husband. So when the kosa means, it has to be through his authorization. He has to authorize the writing of the get. The actual divorce is Mishilcha. He sends her. He has to send her off himself. So that's shlichus. But in terms of the writing of the get, it's only through his authorization. Only then is the get valid. Okay? That's Tosas and Gittin. No, shlichus means the Torah says you must write. If Torah says you must write the get, that means the agent has to be you. So if a child's not qualified to be an agent, regardless of what the intent of the child was, the husband didn't write the get. So therefore Tosa shows, but since a child can write the get, if somebody instructs him every step of the way, so you see clearly it's not an agency. It's not the law of agency. It's halacha and what? The husband is authorizing the get should be written on his behalf. It's the authorization of the husband. But actually divorcing, the man has to himself have to give the get. So that there's some shilcha, that's shlichus, that's shlich shlom kamosa. One's agent is the equivalent of his himself. No, but it's an evaluation because it's all intent. It's all intent. No, it's not. No, nothing. It's an evaluation, right? A non-Jew, he has his own ideas. He does not follow instruction, so therefore he doesn't. When it has to be written lishma, he will not write lishma. He has his own ideas. Right. No. It has to be written. I'm writing it for the sake of this man and for the sake of this woman, to be used within the context of divorce. If every moment he has to have it in mind continuously. If somebody it's referred to Godol Omed Al Gabav, an adult is over him, supervising him, instructing him, everything he writes continuously reminds him. It's for the sake of this man and for the sake of this woman. So if it's continuous, he's continuously told this, we could rely that the child has sufficient, we're talking about a child who has sufficient attention span, that he could follow instruction. A non-Jew, even to follow instructions, irrelevant, because he has his own ideas. That's a daitin nafshikovit. That's the Gemara Gid. Okay? I'm not getting into the details, but clearly Tosa says, if a child is qualified, a non-Jew is not qualified, not because he's not a non-Jew, but it's only because he doesn't follow instructions. You clearly see the writing of the get is not a shlichus. It's not a halach in shlichus. Right? It's clear. So now, what do you say b'fani nechtam? If you say the get was written in my presence, what do you have to say the get was written in his presence? Because there's a concern. Maybe the sofer, the scribe, he wasn't proficient in all the laws, and maybe he didn't have the proper intent. The get may have been written for someone else, and the information is identical, and he gave the get. So the shliach, he attested to the fact, it was written in my presence to indicate that it was written lishma. It was written for this particular husband and wife, okay? That's the shliach. But why? If it's only something, maybe get Medina Sayyam, because in Medina Sayyam, outside of Eretz Yisrael, people, even though they may have been phenomenal scribes, but they weren't really proficient in halachas, in the laws. So maybe this law he wasn't really aware of and wasn't written properly in terms of kavanah. So you test the fact before he nechtav. Okay? Remember, here's a Jew. Now, I remember many years ago, there was a certain person. He was a Russian, and he was, as a calligrapher, one of a kind. And he came to Baltimore, and he was a Baal Tshuva, and he wanted to become a sofer. And Rabbi Heinemann, Moshe Heinemann, he oversees everything that has to do with the community over there, and he gives what we call the certification, whether you're qualified sofer, scribe or not. This is the tefillin, mezuzah, sefer Torah, whatever it is, because there are many halachos you have to know. And as often as he took the test, he failed every time. Couldn't pass, so they didn't give him the document which would indicate that he's a qualified sofer. And he was a parshas issue. So remember, The story goes back maybe 35 years ago, and he had no parnasa. He had to support his family. And he came to me, he says, if you want, I'll write a Megillah for you. Megillah Esther. And he showed me what he'd written, one piece of parchment, beautiful. I said, not a problem. I said, how much do you want for it? $500. $500, 35 years ago, it was the going rate. Maybe even it was more expensive. I said, no, but it was tzedakah. It was really giving the man tzedakah. Not a problem. And he wrote me the Megillah. But again, Megillah doesn't have to be written lishma. As long as it's written on parchment and the ink is proper ink, and the letters are there, that's all you have to have. There's no lishma. So that's it. But in terms of anything else, unless you're really fully proficient, so a person's not moritz, or not fully proficient, writes a get. If the get's not written with the proper intent, the woman's not divorced. So therefore, Eretz Yisrael, the Sofrim, they were beki in lishma. They were expert, they were proficient. Now Bavel, the Gemara says, before Rav came to Bavel, Rav originally was what? Rav was a Talmud of Rabbi Yehuda Nossi. He was a Talmud. Rav and Rabbi Yochanan, they were colleagues initially. They both from Eretz Yisrael. And Rav was greater than Rabbi Yochanan. Before Rav came to Bavel, also, Bavel was no different than any other community outside of Eretz Yisrael. When Rav came to Bavel, he established yeshivas in Bavel. There was a proliferation of yeshivas, Talmidei Chachomim. Then Bavel was on par with Eretz Yisrael. So therefore, the Gemara says that Bavel, maybe you get me Bavel, you bring a get from Bavel, it's equivalent to bringing a get from Eretz Yisrael. The Sofer does not have, the Shliach does not have to attest to the fact that the get was written Lishma. Wait one second. Okay, you're skipping. I'm backwards or forward, I'm not sure where you're skipping. Okay, so I'm quoting the Gemara. So Gemara says, when Rav went to Bavel, Bavel changed. Bavel became like Eretz Yisrael. Okay, now what about the funny Nechtav? Nechtav. What does he have to test to the fact it was written in my presence? Now, if you have a regular monetary document and you want to collect with it, could the borrower say Porati? Right? You have a document. Documented loan, the lender comes, he says, I lent you $1,000, you haven't paid the debt. He says, I paid it. And he shows him the document. Could he say Porati? It depends. If the document was already substantiated by the court that the signatures are not a forgery, he can't say Porati. He can't say I paid. If you paid, what am I doing with the document? I sure did. What about it wasn't yet certified? It wasn't substantiated by the court that the signatures are not forgeries. Then the man could say Porati. He could say I paid. So it's called kiyum. You have to substantiate the signatures. You have to verify it. So now, you bring a get, unless the shliach attests to the fact that these are authentic signatures, what happens later if the husband should say it's a forgery? How are you going to ever prove it's not a forgery? It comes from wherever it is. You'll never locate those witnesses. Or you're not going to locate people who recognize those signatures. So the woman, a whole question now, she may not be divorced based on the husband's accusation or claim that he never wrote the get. So therefore, if a get comes from Nid Sayyam, not only does the shliach have to attest to the fact that it was written with the proper intent, lishma, that he witnessed the writing, the signatures themselves, that it's not a forgery, to avoid this issue later. Okay? Wait 1 second. So, what about in Bavel, Eretz Yisrael? So the Gemara says, because between Eretz Yisrael and Bavel, there were shayoros mitzuyos. There were caravans that went back and forth continuously. So inevitable, you'll be able to locate witnesses who recognize those signatures. So therefore, it could be confirmed. So even if the shliach who delivers it doesn't attest to the authenticity of the signatures, it's okay, because if it's contested later, we'll be able to verify that they're authentic signatures. And the husband, knowing that, he's not going to claim that it's a forgery. Very often, the person after he gives a get, after he regrets he gave the get. So what he'll do? He wants to make problems. I never gave the get, so what are you going to do? Or he has a reason he wants to really hurt his ex-wife. So, and she already has children from a new husband. I never gave the get, so what is she going to do? She's really in a bind. So if he knows that if he ever makes that accusation and it's going to come back at him, because he's going to be proven that he lied, he's not going to make the accusation. So as long as it could be verified, because you have shayoris mitzuyis, it's not a problem. So now the question is, when we say Bavel is solus in the kiyah, as we say, is it only liyuchsin? Is it only for pedigree? What about from fani nechtam? There's no question. Bavel is Keretz Yisrael, but the borders, the boundaries which we stated. Is yuchsin and get the same thing? Or do we say, no, maybe for pedigree it is, but there were certain areas in Bavel that they weren't really that learned. And if they're not that learned, if you bring from those areas in Bavel, the shliach does have to say fani nechtam. So that's a machlokas now in the Gemara. Okay? Amrav Papa, ki machlokas liyuchsin, kach machlokas linyigidin. Just as we find this in machlokas amorim, which cities, to what point do we say it's Bavel where it's a pure pedigree? Just as they're arguing that regarding pedigree, the same thing is regarding get. Do you have to say fani nechtam? Okay? Rav Yosef Omar, machlokas liyuchsin. The machlokas only regarding pedigree. Avo ligidin riakol. Ar arvo tinyone de gishro. Everybody is up to a certain point. They're proficient. Beyond that point, there's no argument. Forget up to a point that they are learned, and therefore one does not have to say fani nechtam. Beyond that point, one does have to say it. More ask the question is to get back to it regarding fani nechtam. We say in davar sheber v'pos mishnayim, correct? That regarding one's marital status, you have to have minimally 2 witnesses. So for marriage, you have to have 2 witnesses. A get has to have 2 witnesses. So now, attesting to the fact that the get is not a forgery. He's an eid echad. He's a single witness. It's a davar sheberva. It's a davar sheberva, a davar sheberva post mishnayim. Gemara asked the question. We'll get. No? Anybody know the answer? Yeah, yeah. No. Why is the agent's testimony sufficient? His testimony determines that the get is a document, is an instrument which can terminate the marriage. So which has its consequences, the marriage is terminated. No, it's not enough. It's not enough. Reputation is not enough. So the Gemara says, no. Okay. You ever hear of peanut gallery? This is coming from the gallery. Okay. So the Gemara says in Gittin, because this is when they sign it. It's like witnesses testified in court. The document itself is not suspect that it's forged. It's not suspect. Even if the husband claims it's forged, it's all rabbinical. That you have to substantiate it, it's a rabbinical halacha. On a Torah level, a document stands on its own. No, you need shlich to deliver it. You don't need shlich to say anything. It's only because the husband may claim later that he never gave it. It creates a problem. We just want to assure the wife at a later date there's not going to be a problem here. That he'll claim it's a forgery, he'll claim whatever he may claim. Witnesses who sign a document as if they've been interrogated in the court, and the court gave a verdict based on their testimony. That's the Torah level. Everything else is rabbinical. Therefore, everything's rabbinical. It's all rabbinical. It's a chashash. There's a chashash, we're concerned, but on a Torah level, a sofer usually, the presumption is, the probability he knew the halacha. But again, to be certain, with beyond any doubt, this is what we prefer. So Eretz Yisrael, it's already beyond any doubt. Because the Bikin Lishmo, Eretz Yisrael, because you could verify it, we don't need the testimony of the agent. But the Chutz La'aretz, it's not simple. Okay? No, the Shliach is testimony. He says, I attest to the fact it was written Lishmo, and these signatures are authentic signatures. That's testimony. But it's testimony of a single witness. He's an Eid Echad, he's not 2 witnesses. You have to say it's not sufficient. You have to have somebody else coming to testify to the other aspects of the gift. It's not sufficient. Eretz Yisrael will be sufficient, because Eretz Yisrael, that's not part of his responsibility. because you could locate people to substantiate the signatures, and also, and we're not concerned, it wasn't written with the proper intent. B'chutz loretz, if it comes from overseas, anywhere else, the shliach has to be one and the same to testify about every aspect of that get. Not only that he was authorized to deliver the get. What do we marriage document? We had it early in kiddushin. There's a question whether it says, how do you know that you could marry with a document? Right? The Gemara asked, how do we know you can marry with money? How do you know you can marry through cohabitation? How do you know you can marry with a document? So the Gemara says, because it's v'holcha v'hois l'shacher. It says v'kos l'sefer krisus. So that's divorce, and she goes and marries another individual, l'shacher. So the Gemara says, Maka Shavai Liyitzia. The Torah juxtaposes marriage to divorce. Just as a woman can be divorced with a document, she can be married with a document. Well, we said it was an argument when we linked them to all the criteria to determine whether it gets valid or not. All those issues, do they also apply to kiddushin? It was machlok samaroim. We rule halacha, it has to be written l'shma. If you marry with a document, it has to be written l'shma. Would apply the same thing. See, but there it's not. It's only if you married with a shliach. See, if you marry with a shliach, yeah, same thing would have to be. There's what we call a cheskes kashrus. Person has a presumed status that he's not, he's doing the right thing. I have two witnesses come to court and they want to testify. How do you know they're qualified witnesses? Maybe he's a thief. Maybe he's a gambler. Maybe he's a who knows what. Person has a cheskes kashrus. Person has a presumed status. He's a kosher Jew. Everything is based on chazakah. Without chazakah, you couldn't go forward.
So the document is
yeah. Omer Rami Bar Abba. Chavil Yama. There's a community in Bavel called Chavil Yama. The Chavil literally means a rope. Tchelte de Bavel. That's the equivalent of that tchelis. Tchelis is what? Which has great value, precious. That is the quality. That's the purest pedigree in Bavel. Come from the community of Tchelte. That's why it's called Tchelte de Bavel. What is Guvia? Two communities called Shunya and Guvia, or Govia. Tchelte de Choviyama. Excuse me. Shunya Guvia Tchelte de Choviyama. Ravino Ma'af Tzitsura. There's another community called Tzitsura. Also, the people of the highest quality of pedigree, they come from a community called Tzitsura. Tanya Namihochi, as we learned in the Bryce, Chonan ben Pinchas Omer Chavel Yamo. Tchelte de Bavel. Shunya V'Guvia Tzitsura Tchelte de Choviyama. Of Choviyama, that is the cream of the crop, so to say. They are the quality. These other communities. As somebody asked before, who was sitting there before, but over time, things happen. Now, we're going back 2,000 years ago. Or whatever it is. Things don't remain the same. What happens? And they intermarry. Since then, the Kuthites came, and they intermarried, and therefore it's a problem. It's a problem. So then the pedigree is no longer the same. Versus Veloi. So the Gemara rejects where Papa says, Veloi itza hu the boy minayu. He says, you know why they say that? Why did Rav Papa make this comment? Because itza hu the boy minayu, somebody wanted to marry a woman from the community, Veloi avalei, and they wouldn't allow their daughter to marry him. So what did he do? So he slandered the community by saying they're all illegitimate. So Rashi has two pshatim and Tosas also here. Now, who slandered the community? The Kusi or Rav Papa? No, Chas v'Sholem. So they say Chas v'Sholem, Rav Papa. That's Moshe Shemra. What? Rav Papa went and slandered the community. Take a look in Rashi. Kusim lo nisar b'hem avokakol yotza al yidei sheshol kusi echod isha mehem. There was this Kuthite. He wanted to marry one of the women in the community. Avalhem lo noslo. They turned him down. They rejected him. V'yesh omer Rav Papa boy, I would say. Rav Papa personally wanted to marry a woman from the Lo Yavli. Kach yemotzi aleim shemetz psul. Therefore, he said they themselves are illegitimate. Because Shebeinai lo makain. So Rashi says it's difficult for him to accept that. Right? What? Because he was turned down. What? He's taking revenge against them. So Tosas himself speaks it out more clearly. What, he's just going to just slander them? What's the basis for it? Because they turned him down, they wouldn't give him a wife. That's a basis to say they're not legitimate. I mean, how do you even consider saying such a thing? Evidently, there is such an opinion. Tosas quotes it. Maybe it's like this. That they weren't willing to accept a man like Rav Papa as a son. That's the indication they themselves are actually, there's a problem in their own legitimacy. Because how could they reject him? How could you reject him? So Rav Papa said for him, that was an indication, is what to suspect. Otherwise, I mean, how do you even consider saying such a thing? Rav Papa, because they turned him down, they rejected him. That's a reason to say that they're illegitimate. I mean, it's slander. Well, you say, no, that they turned down is an indication, like we had it before, if you have quarreling families, that's an indication one of the families is not legitimate. Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't want them to intermarry. And therefore, he allows there should be this dispute to prevent this illegitimacy from actually soiling the family. Right? We had the Gemara Talmud base before. We're not going, that's not the primary interpretation. Yeah. Omer Papa Zuporas, now it says, My Chovel Yomo. What is Chovel Yomo? What exactly is that community? Chovel Yomo, we say the highest quality of pedigree is there. Omer Papa Zupras de Bursi. The location is called Pras de Bursi. Hau Gavra de Omadu Anan Minut Meshut. A man comes, he says, I come from a community called Shot Meshet. Omer of Yitzchak Nafchal Raglo, Vom Shot Meshet, Ben Anoris Medes. He says, this community between the rivers over there in Bavel. Zemar says, V'chi Ben Anoris Medes Mayabe. Therefore what? What is he saying? He says, that community is between the rivers, which indicates something negative. Omer Abai, Omer of Chomer, Bar Ukva, Omer of Yosef, Chanina Ben Ahoros, Harik Gola Luyuchsin. What he meant to say is, that is the equivalent of Pumbedisa. That's the highest pedigree. When the man said that I come from that community between the rivers, what he meant to say is, this is the highest pedigree. Okay? Where is it exactly located? Which rivers? Omar Rabbi Yochanan Mi'i de Kiro Uleel. It's from this location and beyond. Some asks, Omar Rabbi Yochanan Ad Ma'abra de Gizmo. How could he say it's at a certain location? Rabbi Yochanan himself says beyond a certain location, they're not. The pedigree is questionable, and this location is beyond that location. What he said earlier on that, Amar Abaye Ritzu and Nafka, meaning it's true. The community that's beyond that, the pedigree is questionable, but there's a extension, a strip of land that goes out, which goes around them beyond it, and that with of what? Of that's what he's referring to. Omer Avika bar Oven or Bicharano Amarav Chalozon Nahavind. Now Chalozon is it's not a worm. Chalozon is not a worm. It's a snail. That's the blood of the Chalozon. That's the Tchelis. So that's what he's referring. Like before, we referred to a Tchel to the Bavel. The Tchelis Chalozon Nahavind. The community called Chalozon Nahavind. Harika Gola Liusin. That's all. It's the equivalent of Pumbedisa. Omar Abai. So Abai says when Rav Hananel said this, in the name of Rav, he says Lo Tatzitzu Lei. Don't pay attention to what he says. Why? Yivami Denaf Lehosam. His brother community. Yeah, his sister-in-law felt the Yibum, and he wants to marry her. So therefore, he's testifying, he's attesting to the fact that she comes from the community of the highest level of pedigree. Omar lei otu didi. He says, am I quoting myself? To Rav Hanan. I'm quoting Rav Hanan. There's Rav Ika bar Ovin, his brother died. So it's a question of taking his wife to perform Yibum. Also, Shailu Rabbi Hananel. So they want this Rav Hanan. What exactly is the status of this community? Now, what's the question? What he suspected he was lying. We had before. Gemara says before that something that you already taught to your students, and then now it's a question applied to the person himself on a personal level, you apply it. Because when he taught initially, there was no question that it wasn't being taught accurately. But if initially he only introduces it when it has relevance to him, you never know, because of a conflict of interest, he may not be quoting accurately. So therefore the Gemara says, here he said the people of that community, they're of the poorest pedigree. He's making this statement when he already has a Yavama. And we said earlier, if it pertains to the person on a personal level, because of that conflict of interest, maybe what he's saying, he's not quoting it accurately because of his conflict of interest. So, but this is not my evaluation. This is Rav Hananel, who said the name of Rav. He went to Hananel. Said he went, consulted with Rav Hananel. Says, this is what Rav had said. That confirmed that what he said was accurate. We look at the highest quality of pedigree. Rav Bakano argues, now it's interesting, if you read Jewish history a little bit, just a few hundred years ago, and it divided Europe, all the communities in Europe. There was a get, it was called Get Me Cleave. There was a community in Europe called Cleave. It wasn't in Scotland or England. Cleave it was called. The get that came from a community called Cleave. What was the case? I don't think it was French. It wasn't in Strasbourg either. What happened was this man marries a woman, young man, and all of a sudden, after the chuppah, he disappears. So, and they couldn't locate him. Fine. So now the question is, evidently, well, she's an aguna. Well, maybe the man wasn't stable. So there's a whole question. That type of behavior, is that an indication it wasn't stable, therefore the marriage is not a marriage? Or it is a marriage, and therefore she needs to get it. If you're not able to locate him, she's an aguna for the rest of her life. This is one of the issues Europe was divided over. Some Patidinim said, whether it was this community, that community, it was not. And it was made it divided Europe. There was tremendous damage. The credibility of certain rabbonim or whatever it is. This community is legitimate. The highest quality. The other ones said, no, it's illegitimate, so you can't marry. Can you imagine what goes on? It's machlok samaroim. Exactly how to identify regions in Bavel. Are you permitted to marry from those communities? You're not permitted to marry from those communities. You know what it means to put somebody's pedigree in question? Yichus. He owes himself, he has a whole, what they call, documentation of his yichus, going back to Davidim. There's a problem. In one generation, the link is broken. What do you do? And you suspect it, but that's what they're arguing over here. Not simple. You have to go ask a shayla. Once had a question, a certain question about a man was married, and he wasn't really, and he married his wife a month. Everybody's aware of this person. I'm not going to mention names. A month after he was discharged from the psychiatric ward at Mount Sinai Hospital. It was in Europe, the marriage. And the reason why I didn't go to the wedding in Paris, because I felt within a year he's going to desert his wife and he will not give a get. I would not go to the wedding. Sure enough, a year later, he had a child already. They come back to the United States. He's off. He's not willing to give a get under any circumstance. He's an aguna, she has a child. And I went with David, we went to Rebbe Yoshev, and I asked Rebbe Yoshev the Shaila. But before I went to Rebbe Yoshev to ask him the question about the get, I met Rav Moshe Feinstein's son, and it was soon after Rav Moshe Feinstein passed away. And I said to the son, his name is Rabbi David Feinstein, and I said to him, I explained to him the whole situation. Because he doesn't want to agree. I said I could bring the documentation from the psychiatrist that he said in his career, and he was an observant psychiatrist up in Mount Sinai. In his career, 30 years, he's never seen a case as bad as this case. And he says, I predict in 3 years he's going to be a homeless person. That's his level of deterioration. That's how unstable he is. That's what he said. So I asked Reb David Feinstein, which is a posek, I said, I feel she doesn't need a get because the marriage was never a marriage. That's what I feel. But I said, what I feel is irrelevant. Could you give rulings? He said to me, he says, I don't have the shoulders of my father. He said, my father would be alive, he would permit it. But I don't have the shoulders of my father. You have to go ask Rabbi Yoshev. But I'm happy, and Rabbi Yoshev relied on him to communicate information. I'm happy to verify the information here, to communicate to him for Rabbi Yoshev to give a psak. And that was the story. Ultimately, that was one of the aspects of the heter. In Israel, they forced him to give a get to the woman, but it wasn't sufficient, whatever it was. But they used this aspect that maybe the marriage was never married. That was one of the issues why she was permitted to go free. It took a long time. Right. Correct.